Hello, welcome to this episode of Heartfulness Wellness. This is a series in which we discuss different aspects of our health and our well being. Our topic for today is interiorization, which is essentially an art to connect with our own higher self and probably get guidance from within. Today, we will discuss on how to make this happen. Specifically in these difficult times which we are going through, such as the lockdown, we will discuss on what can be done to make the best of the situation related to our well-being, wellness, and personal growth and evolution. My name is Dhruv, and I'm a heartfulness trainer. I've been practicing heartfulness meditation for more than 15 years now, and I'm a retail consultant. And today with me are our esteemed guest, Dr. Jeanne Nanitelamio and Mr. Michel Mouyelo. So I will introduce the first guest now, Dr. Jeanne. She's a professor and researcher. Dr. Jeanne is from Luxembourg and Congo, Brazil, and she has developed her career as a university lecturer and researcher in psychosociology and is now an independent consultant for regional international organizations. She's been practicing the heartfulness meditation since 1995. And our second guest for today is Mr. Michel Mouyelo. He's a statistician-economist. Mr. Michel has worked for the World Bank. He retired from the World Bank in 2014. And since then, he has been an independent consultant for major international organizations. He's been practicing heartfulness meditation since almost last 3 decades. So let's start our discussion. Welcome, Dr. Jeanne and Mr. Michel. We are going through a very tough times nowadays, and during such days, it's difficult for us to detach from the turmoil outside and be settled or be at peace with ourselves. Now, both of you would have gone through very similar or somewhat similar tumultuous events in the past, like the last financial crisis in 2008, or any other previous events which kind of put human beings to various financial and personal challenges. During such times, were you able to maintain an inner balance? I know it's easier said than done.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're staying. Thank you to the Heartfulness movement, which we belong to, for organizing this session. And we truly feel honored to be discussing the issue of interiorization. Regarding the 2008 crisis, which was basically a financial crisis, housing and financial crisis, what we can say is that even though we were concerned in some way, but deep down, we did not feel much from what was then going on, because that was the moment when, in our personal life, we were moving from Africa, where we were working, to the US, Washington, DC, to join the World Bank. And what mattered then for us were basically four things. One is our work, profession, with the financial implication. The second one was our health and well-being in general. Then residence, whether we could be staying somewhere safely, And finally, what we should actually put first was our spiritual practice. As long as those dimensions were in place and could not be threatened in any way, we were therefore following the events that were going on in relation to the housing and financial crisis with some kind of distance, at least emotional distance. Intellectually, we were following every aspect of it, and we had also to look at possible implications in our work, but deep down, we didn't feel anything because that was anyway something beyond us. And there was no need to be afraid of something which you have no handle over it, and you could not change anything to it. So what we had to do is first to remind ourselves that opposite to fear, there was love. There is love. And that particular moment is a period when we were working so hard, we were so busy on the whispers, which I guess we'll be discussing later on. We were so busy working on the whispers that this put us in a kind of comfort situation that could not be shaken by anything outside the heartfulness realm which we were evolving in. There's something I wish to say. It is that when we refer to spirituality, we look at it not from the superstitious angle, meaning that there is turmoil outside, there are big issues, so let go and meditate so that we'll feel protected, so that nothing harmful will happen to us. We didn't take it that way. To us, spirituality, according to the heartfulness, is our life, and therefore we had nothing to fear. And there is something which probably we are all of us learning currently, which is when such big events take place, what we are experiencing and witnessing is a kind of reset button that is hit, and that reset button is for the entire world system. And therefore, we have just to follow the movement, and as far as we are concerned, we had to stay connected, centered, and peaceful inside.
That's very interesting, Brother Mr. Michel, when you mentioned that there's hardly anything we can, there are very few things which we can really influence here. And also, and that kept you, integrated at your mind at one place. You also mentioned about whispers, which is very interesting because I know we understand that you were very close to Mrs. Barrett, who received these whisper messages over many years. Could you enlighten the audience? What are these whisper messages, and what are the words of wisdom which they contain?
I think we would need 3 months or even 3 years to elaborate on the whispers. But to put it in very simple and straightforward words, I would say that whispers are records of conversations taking place between a medium, and in our case, it is Sister Hélène Perret. So between the medium and spiritual entities, spiritual masters, whether these were living masters or masters who already went into the brighter world. So we had then Sister Hélène Perret, who had the capabilities, the abilities to connect with spiritual beings and to kind of download information, teachings, advice from those beings directly. I would say from within her heart. And she would be noting down those messages provided by the spiritual beings. And those messages are what we are referring to here as whispers. Why whispers? It's because it is as if the masters were whispering to her, whispering in a way which somebody who would be sitting by Sister Hélène could not hear. You don't hear with your ears, but you hear it from within your heart, as if it were whispered to you from within. And those messages were, on the average, 1-pager message with a clear indication of the date, the time, and you could see from the flow of guidance and enlightenment provided especially by Babuji, because he is the one who gave most of those messages. More than 85%, close to 90% of messages were given by him. You could see from the flow that those are messages that were taking account of our current situation in the world, and sometimes in very specific countries. And Babuji was then providing advice as to how we should be processing the information from the outer world so that we remain on the path of our own spiritual evolution without being too much distracted by anything that would be happening in our objective and outside life. So the whispers are therefore records of conversations, teachings, and guidance on the path of our evolution of consciousness. And as such, if one could read all the sets of whispers, or even just one volume, one book containing whispers, you would realize that those messages are talking to anyone. They were not exclusively addressed to her. Those are not messages only for this person or that other person. the messages are universal. When you read them, you can see that they represent everyone's personal journey. From the moment we decide to get into spirituality to the moment we are supposed to leave this world, the messages are kind of charting the way to that critical moment. And we'll see that in the messages, references are made to Sister Elaine, and in those messages, in reality, she represents our soul. So when Babuji says, my daughter, etc., he is in reality talking to my soul, to your soul, to anybody's soul. Other things also which personally I've grasped from those messages is that those are messages of love. Love every time, permanently. These are messages calling for increased purity, purity of the heart, purity in whatever we say, whatever we think, whatever we do, and whatever emotion we may have. So these messages, therefore, they help us cultivate that sense of purity, both within and outside. And they are also encouragement towards increased surrender. We have to surrender. So depending on the way we consider it, one can say surrendering to a master, a living master, surrendering to oneself within, surrendering to love, and remaining mindful that all the resources which we need in this lifetime are at our disposal. And one key resource is interiorization. Thank you.
That's very profound, Brother Michel. Would you like to pick up a whisper, which is, you mentioned one page which refers to interiorization, and will elaborate it to the audience what that message is, so that we get a feel of it.
The message is of Tuesday, August 27, 2013 at 10 a.m. Regain serenity. All this turmoil does nothing to facilitate the interiorization process that is required here. Keeping yourself aloof from the material world leads more easily to the desired disposition. Immerse yourself in the space of peace and love, where you excel in love and service. Here, everything calms down and our contact is facilitated. Loving hearts always manage to find the way. When they finally reach the one that suits them, they transcend the human turbulences that are inevitable in this world. They know how to find within themselves that which they need and they drink for this very special source. The Sajmak way, as simple as it may seem, leads beings to the level that befits them. They advance with time and according to their commitment. The way clears up gradually and its harshness subsides. The heart can be delighted and sometimes intensely live moments of true mystical communion. Possessing this faculty is an invaluable asset in life. A big step is thus taken for the future of the subtle being. Everything has its raison d'être here below. Tests are necessary. They enlighten and they help humans grow, especially when accepted in the right spirit. Once again, we repeat ourselves, but this aspect is crucial, and no one is spared on this point. Sooner or later, one has to go through this stage of evolution and comply with that which must be at all levels. In this regard, surrender is a source of wisdom that is perfectly suitable. Accepting, being grateful, and living on love in spite of everything. Such is the real goal to be reached. Babuji.
So I tentatively heard this whisper. The first two lines really caught my attention. This regain serenity, and all this turmoil does nothing to facilitate the interiorization process that is required here. Now, it's one thing to be hearing all the news around ourselves and getting perplexed, like the mind getting split into various directions, like various horses pulling us. And it's another thing to be either interiorize or actually act on any of these issues outside and be settled on those and focusing on it and addressing those. So a very profound message. Regain serenity was the punchline, and in fact, what other option do we have during such times? My next question to you is very short. Probably needs a deeper explanation. How would you define interiorization?
Let me start off with a very small story about the medium, mother or sister Hélène Perret. She is a lady who enjoyed riding horses, traveling, working, doing all sorts of things outside. A true sportswoman. But at some point in her life, she had to live in confinement. And there is a poem she loved so much from Kabir. That is, do not go to the garden of flowers, oh friend, go not there. In your body is the garden of flowers. So interiorization, according to her, and we too adopted this definition of it, is the process whereby we become aware of that garden of flowers that is in our heart. And it is so beautiful, so rich a garden that we don't need to go outside looking for other flowers that are polluted with violence, with hatred, with all the problems we know that make this life so difficult to go through. But the interiorization, if we define it as the way of operating from within our heart, of living in the heart, by the heart, it is exactly what we are supposed to be doing whenever we meditate. When we close our eyes, we are invited to dive into our heart. And diving in the heart is the beginning of interiorization. Beginning in the sense that when we say, I'm diving, I'm plunging into my heart, that is my intent. But then I have to go beyond the intent because I need to feel all the love, all the joy that is associated with getting into a space where I will find inner peace. And with interiorization, I redefine my state of being. So interiorization is the state of being we should constantly, permanently be in. Even as my eyes are open and I am attending to so many things as a family member, as a professional, etc., I'm supposed to be doing it from within my heart. It is as if the person whom the others are looking at is not simply this face, this body, but in reality, that person is inside me. And it is that person who is communicating, discussing, interacting with the others. And interiorization is also the process of deciding and getting into inner exploration of my higher self. Exploration, because that space inside me, that garden of flowers, is infinite. It has no limit. It has no past, it has no present. It's the eternal present moment. And everything is there. So I have to connect with that realm of peace and love. I have to be disconnected from the outer hustle and bustle. And I have to realize that the true me is inside, that my spiritual entity is inside my heart. And that if I'm looking for knowledge, that knowledge can be obtained, harvested, only from within my heart. So the interiorization process is about getting into the journey of raising my vibration frequency level. It's a long journey. I can't say that, oh, today I've interiorized myself. No, it is something you are supposed to be in a permanent manner. And what you will be discovering today is likely to be different from what you experienced before. What is at stake is to move up the ladder of our consciousness. We have to reach higher and higher degrees of consciousness. And through that, we at the same time experience unconditional love. And we therefore feel connected with everything that is. We feel connected with the entire universe. So, by way of conclusion, I would say that, in fact, interiorization is heartfulness, in the sense that we will be achieving the fullness of that single and unique heart, which is the heart of the universe. But the door to that heart is within me. So I have to get through that door, and from there, I will be moving deeper and deeper inside myself, only to discover that where the place I've reached has no reference of time, it has no reference of geography, it has no objective reference at all, because I've almost merged into the consciousness with capital C. So this is the process of interiorization.
I'm almost getting lost in sort of just feeling and sensing what are you saying. The words are so potent, and you come with that experience as well. Is there any whisper you'd like to quote here, which also goes a bit deeper? What about on interiorization, and tells what are the benefits we get out of interiorization? Like, is there something I'd like to quote here?
Whispers of Friday, June 26, 2015, 10 a.m. Life is a constant struggle. Nothing can be attained without effort. There lies the very principle of this life in all its manifestations. The whole of creation is astounding in its diversity and power of action. Human beings are very small in the face of it. Their power has limits. Sooner or later, one realizes and bows down with a greater or lesser degree of wisdom. Wisdom is the goal, yet it's necessary to recognize its importance and cultivate it within oneself as the most valuable asset. Following a spiritual process opens up horizons onto the importance of committing oneself beyond this material life, a life that is devoid of enlightening perspectives on the subtle level. What remains of an incarnation? Although all incarnations are counted and recorded, great deeds are not commonplace. Honesty and wisdom are invaluable assets. They constitute a human being's true wealth when the time of assessment has come. Everyone does what they can. It's wise to adjust oneself on the spiritual level. There, at least, no effort is futile. Interiorizing oneself and going towards the ultimate goal is the most beautiful quest. It provides access to the sacred space, the true joy, that which delights the soul in all its subtlety. Diving into oneself, being nourished by this unique vibration, is the most beautiful objective. Its achievement enchants the soul and opens up perspectives on the infinite splendor. Everything starts and ends there. Such is the only true goal, the supreme rewards. This is how it is, Babuji.
Seems as if there's a very profound vibration with these whispers, and the way the whole thing is woven. Just one page is beautiful. So just picking a few lines over there, the way it connects us says that the whole of creation is astounding in its diversity and power of action, and human beings are very small in the face of it. And then a few lines down, it mentions that following a spiritual process opens up horizons onto the importance of committing oneself beyond this material life. And then finally, it just says about interiorizing oneself and going towards the ultimate goal is a most beautiful quest. It provides access to the sacred space to true joys. So it's very wonderfully woven. Uh, uh, my next question is around a bit divergent. So it's around today's youth. So today's youth, they want to experience something quickly rather than hear long speeches. So what is your advice to the youths who would like to experience this inner space?
I think that our way, heartfulness practice, meditation through the heart, is the best space for youth to discover. Really, first for self-discovery, and also, as Brother Michel was saying, you go within and you discover the universe. So, heartfulness practice and offer a really golden opportunity for youth to build their life, to have resources to build their life, to be able to know who they are, what are really the true meaning of their life. It's not too soon. You cannot say when you are youth that, oh, I need some space to enjoy myself, and then later on I'll be able to be more wise. The world we are living in does not allow for us to take that time. Today, youth need to be really quick in grasping what is going on, in discovering who they are, and what are the most important thing to understand about themselves and about the world outside. Youth is a time of adventure. So the best adventure is to go inside oneself, to go in. To be more practical, during meditation, if they do have a question or they would like to get inspired, they just can ask themselves the question, or ask the question to nature, to the master. And after that, listen to what will be coming. It can be somebody giving you an advice. It can be just the nature speaking to you. And if you pay attention to what you feel, to what you thought, you will realize that one of your questions, if you have many, will be answered. So for me, Heartfulness way, it's really one of the best way for youth, really to be focused and to really be able to sort out what is really important in life and what is not important. We have all been youth, and we know how it is, but today world is more tempting than before. Is this noise of digital world, the smartphone, etc. All this can be good to connect with other people, but it brings also a lot of noise, which do that you can really find some difficulties to connect himself, to go inside, and not to be influenced by all those stereotypes, those way of beings portrayed in the media, and they are bombarded with so much things, so they need something to go inside. So if they really want to discover, this is the challenge to give to them. Go inside, discover yourself, you will discover the world, meditate, ask a question to the world, to your master, and wait for the answer. It will come, it always comes. It's really, but they need to put that in practice. No long speeches, just close your eyes and meditate. If you have a question, you raise the question and you wait, or you observe, or you be attentive to what will be coming. Silence. So one of the best, the greatest challenge for them is to be silent and to discover this wonderful universe which is inside them. And then they will be able to look at the world outside them differently, and also be able to organize their life, even on the mundane aspect, the girls, marriage, the family, job, because then they will realize that all this is just a way of a stage for us to live our life, to experience and to learn. And everybody is here on this world for that. We are incarnated not to have fun or to go to the movies and dance, etc. We are here to learn. And the sooner the better. So that's my few advices I can give to a trainer who would like to share that with youth.
I hope youths are hearing this and they take up this challenge. Yes, yes, go ahead, Michel.
I just wanted to add something to what Sister Jeanne just said. Let's suppose that we have a kind of video game for the youth. Okay, let us develop a video game for the youth. And that video game is the following. There is a consciousness that is driving a biological vehicle. So the youth is the biological vehicle, and the consciousness is somewhere. Let's put it this way, the consciousness is inside. And it is from inside that this vehicle is being driven. I'm just making it very simple. That consciousness will be using 3 categories of resources. thoughts, emotions, and actions or states of being. So these three categories of resources. Now, the game is about using those three categories of resources the most advisedly possible, with a view to attaining a goal. There would be different milestones in that game, and you have to reach this milestone and thereafter that other milestone. But what is the milestone? The milestone is just for you as a youth to decide something. I want to achieve this in my life. Okay, so you have those resources. Use them and see which outcomes you'll be experiencing. And how do you play that game? Through meditation, through spiritual practice as recommended in the Heartfulness movement. And specifically, among those elements of heartfulness practice, you have to interiorize yourself so that you get closer to that consciousness that is driving your life.
That's very interesting. So you take up this challenge and then play up this game. And then we have to, they can see for themselves if they try it out. In just few days. So I personally had a very positive experience when I started meditation. So I would request, recommend all the youths to try it as well. In fact, I remember I had an experience within the second day or third day or something like that. So that was so profound. Now I'll come to my last question. So we started discussing about the turmoil outside, and then dissociating from this turmoil to connect inside. So looking at a very different way, actually, this is a golden opportunity. We have time at our disposal to introspect, for self-improvement, to meditate. And as Revdaji has mentioned that such an opportunity you might not have again. I mean, this is a very golden opportunity to interiorize and go in. In your experience with close association with Sister Helen, we call the medium, we understand that she was literally at a home for many years due to various reasons. What did you ever hear from her, and what she felt about it? So that was my first question. And the second thing is around the environment. So we know environment is very important, and in the book Reality at Dawn, it mentions that there's a sentence. It starts in the chapter Spiritual Training, that our present moral and religious degradation is mostly due to the environment around us, mostly due to the environment and our wrong training. So that's a wonderful and outstanding research by Babuji, in which environment plays a very important role, much more than we think. So again, coming to the same thing, we are at our homes, we are meditating, we create an environment within ourselves, in our families, at our home, but eventually we have to step out. How do we carry the environment out? How do we make use best of that environment, so that the potential or the capacity which we have created during such days can be maintained, and of course can be nourished further?
I will speak about Sister Hélène. We call her Moma. Of course, she was complaining. It was not easy, as Babuji is saying in his messages. It's not easy. It was not easy, but two things: love and discipline. She was a very well-disciplined person. And what was carrying her through all these messages was love for her masters. And she was telling us with love she can do, she can do anything. But it was this kind of love which is really powerful, unconditional. I don't know how I can describe it here, because even for simple human beings, we cannot understand it, but it was really very powerful, because she was many times suffering as you even cannot imagine, but yet every day she has this she has to record Babuji message, and you will see when you will read some whispers, you even can find that Babuji is telling her to have some rest. Babuji has quite to not to fight with her to say now you need to rest, because for her channeling the master teachings and wisdom was a raison d'etre. It was her life. She was living for that only. That is something to consider when talking about her confinement and the way she was living it. So even though at times she could have said to Babuji, please, Babuji, let me just go down and, you know, I just want to have a contact with a tree outside. But finally, she knew that she has to do that, to accomplish her mission. This is really what was the most important thing in her life.
And regarding confinement, there is something really beautiful and humbling, which I personally got from her. She was saying that, of course, she was into that isolation for several decades. But in reality, confinement is something which we should consider as our birthright. This life of ours started with confinement, 9 months of confinement. And the result of that is that we were born. It is difficult when you have been already living for so many years to be told by some experience in life that you have to stop everything which you were used to be doing outside, and now you have to focus only on the very purpose of your life, that is downloading those teachings to be shared with the rest of the world. And given the importance of those teachings, you have to be in a state of purity. Therefore, you need to withdraw physically from the outside world. Otherwise, because you are so sensitive, you would be catching, attracting, and being polluted by all those vibrations from outside, vibrations of greed, of violence, etc., of sufferings, of lies. But if you are in your home, what can you do in the home but meditating every time. And we saw Mother Elaine, almost meditating from dawn to sunset. That was her life during more than 20 years. It's because through that process of isolation that everything in her, including her cells, could be cleansed, purified. We have to be in that kind of state and condition so that you can deserve communicating directly with those higher masters. And she was telling us that what she was doing, so many people could do it. All it takes is that it is the sense of surrender and dedication. It takes also that love, and love is essential in this matter, so that even as you believe that you are so sick that you have no more energy to do something, yet you'll be able to deliver on your promise to your masters, because they will be feeding you with the energy you need for you to be able to achieve what you have to achieve. And because time is running from what I can see here, I'll just say that regarding the second part of the question, what we have in the Heartfulness is constant remembrance. But this constant remembrance, from the standpoint of interiorization, we can express it in a different way.
I just would like to add something here about Moma. I said that she was a very disciplined person. She was always busy. She was connected to the world, listening to the news, listening to music, doing some exercise, because she had to maintain a physical condition which was already not easy to maintain. And every day, every single day, she was doing that. So it was not, as she was saying herself, she was not always in meditating, because she was interacting with people, interacting with the world. She was reacting to the news. That's why in the whispers, you can see sometimes Babuji referring to some things that happen somewhere in the world to give more food to the messages, and to put them in connection with the world as it is. Some things that happen somewhere, people who were killed, or at least an event, or even sometimes people demonstrating under windows. So all this Moma was also interested by that. She was not interested by what was going on in the world. She has been to Africa, and she was very interested by everything. For example, she came in Abidjan, where we are now, when she was a young married, and she was really open-minded. She was universal. I just wanted to add this love, discipline. So she was not bored. She was always doing something, drawing, because she was very good at that, doing so many things at the same time. So if you are inside and you say, oh, yeah, I cannot go outside, and I'm here stuck at home, what can I do? So you need to find yourself a way of being busy, but in a very constructive way. This is what I wanted to add to what you said about
Thank you. That seems to be literally like a love story. I would, after that very profound session, I feel as if we should leave it in some silence. We've been discussing for almost for an hour now, and really would like to thank our esteemed guest for the time today, and hope this was a very nourishing session for our audience. Would like to really thank all of you for joining. We have put up one slide over here in which you can see the various channels through which you can connect to Heartfulness and go deep into it. So here are the various channels which you can connect. So that's all we had. Thank you and have a good evening. Goodbye.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.